You're Başahr, huh? So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the very talented Daryl Enka. Okay, so I think we're ready. You ready, Daryl?
I am.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you all so very much for coming and joining us in this experience. And thank you, Daryl and Başahr, for being able to open up this doorway and communicate with us in this way. It is truly extraordinary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, please have a good time. I will see you later. Bye-bye. Oh, let us say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. All right, thank you. First and foremost, we will once again thank each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively for the co-creation of this interaction and the allowance of this transmission this day of your time. Every single time you offer us an opportunity to interact with each and every one of you, it is a gift for us. So we thank you for that sharing, for that gift. In this transmission, which we have titled The 7 Neutral Needs, we would like to begin this way. Now, many people on your planet have discussed with us that when they find themselves in certain circumstances, they do not necessarily know the difference between what it is they need in life and what it is that they often say that they want in life. There is a big difference between the idea of the energy of what you need and what you may want. Now, sometimes they might coincide if you get lucky. But the idea is that many times what you want might often be the product of what you've been taught to believe you need that may not actually be what you really need in life. And what you want can sometimes, because of those belief systems that might be either fear-based or negative, be something that the negative ego thinks it needs to be in control of, it needs to attract into your life in order for your life to be fulfilled. But the thing to understand is that life works automatically when you allow it to. And everything you truly need will come to you in perfect timing. It's an automatic mechanism. The idea of wanting something, we understand that the way you mean it, we understand that the way you often use it, but when you put too much emphasis behind it as being something that must happen in the way you have envisioned it happening, very often you're actually limiting yourself and limiting the way it could happen much greater than you imagine. Because the physical mind, as we have said, is limited in its way of imagining things. The higher mind, in a sense, can imagine more. So when the physical mind seeks to control and says, well, I want this, and if this doesn't happen, then something must be wrong, then you are actually closing the doors through which the higher mind could give you something better than the physical mind was capable of imagining, and thus you are actually shortchanging yourselves. But the idea also to remember is that every single thing is its own state of being. And the idea of wanting something is exactly that. It is a state of wanting. It is not a state of having. So if you insist on wanting, you're going to remain in a state of wanting, and you're not actually going to be able to have, to really manifest, to experience the focus of your wanting, because all you're doing is saying you want it, and therefore you will continue to do nothing but stay in a state of wanting it, and it will never arrive. That's another reason to understand that wanting is not necessarily in your best interest, but needing is. Now, the idea is that when you again find yourself in circumstances and you might find yourself being confused about what's going on and what do I really need here, to really allow myself to move forward in life, to really act on my passion to the best of my ability. with no insistence on an outcome. What do I really need in life to be who I really am, to allow my life to grow, to expand in the most joyful possible way? What do I really need? So in this transmission, we have broken it down for you to the 7 basic needs. Now, we call them the neutral needs because these are the basic things you need to survive in your life. The idea is not so much that you have to assign a meaning to them, which is again why we call them neutral. They function automatically in a certain way by themselves, although you can certainly color them with your belief system and imbue them with different meanings and different emotions and different definitions and so forth. But by themselves, they are just the basic fundamental needs that are required for you to exist in your physical reality experience. And anytime you find yourself caught up in any kind of circumstance where you find yourself wondering what kind of state of being is really most beneficial for you to be in, you can always use these 7 neutral needs to go back to a ground state, back to a fundamental state, and start again from zero, start again from scratch, and recognize that in many circumstances, you really are getting what you need. And by focusing on the 7 neutral needs, it can also aid and assist you in understanding the difference between what you may really need in that moment as opposed to what you are saying you want in that moment. And it can act as a clarifying system for you. Now, the 7 neutral needs, shall we say, have different time frames associated to them because they are things you really do need to experience your physical reality. You will find that some of them you need all the time. Some of them can take weeks before you realize you need it. Some of them can take years before you realize you need it, but you really need them all. The idea is that without them, you will either quickly or slowly die. That's how you know they are actually fundamental needs. The ones that take years, in a sense, can seem misleading because you might feel, well, I'm still fine, I'm still breathing, I'm still moving along. And so you can fool yourself into thinking you don't need it, or that you are altering it in a way that is not really in alignment with the need. But nevertheless, all we're saying is the difference between the needs that are quick and the needs that take longer is just that you either die quickly or you die slowly over time. And when we say die, we are also talking about the idea of your energy, your spirit, your willingness to live, your feeling that you belong, your feeling that you fit, your feeling that you are empowered. These things, with negative beliefs, can over time wither, in a sense, and appear to die, causing you to slowly die over time, when you could be living a more vibrant life, a more energetic life. So, what are the 7 neutral needs? Thank you, we're glad you asked. In order of how long they take to kill you, if you don't do them, we start with, you need air. If you don't have air, you will be dead pretty soon. Within a matter of minutes. So that's the quickest one. You need air to live in your physical reality. Next, you need water to live in your physical reality. Without water, you will probably die in about a week. So that's a little longer. Next, now, many of you may be thinking, well, next, I need food. That's not the next thing. Next, you need sleep. You need to dream. You need to reconnect to spirit. That's what sleeping is for. That's what dreaming is about. You need to re-energize your physical battery. Without sleep, you will only last about 11 days. and then you will die and sleep a lot longer than you intended to. Next is food. You need food in general. Now, please understand, before we go on, of course, there are always some exceptions. There are people who are of a state where they can be breatharians and so on and so forth, and they may seem to not need food for longer periods of time. I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about the general populace on your planet. So, in general, you need sustenance of some form, or you will find in about 2 to 3 weeks you will start to die. Now, what's next? Those are the 4 main ones that happen pretty rapidly. Now we enter a new phase where things can take months or years. So, what is next is you need some form of shelter. Now, when we say shelter, we don't necessarily mean it has to be a building or a house. Your environment can be your shelter if it is the kind of environment in which you can thrive. So, for instance, people on your planet who might live on a tropical isle where the weather is always fine will find that that will be shelter enough, and they won't necessarily have to live in a dwelling in the classical sense. But you need some form of shelter, even if it is simply your environment that is beneficial to you. That is still a shelter, the shelter of nature, the shelter of earth that is in accord and in alignment with the human form to sustain it. Next, you need some form of connection, relationship, in some way. I understand that sometimes people may be on journeys where they seem to spend a long time alone. But that doesn't mean they're not in a relationship. The relationship doesn't have to be with other human beings. It can be with animals, it can be with trees, it can be with spirit, it can be with a rock, it can be with God, but it's a relationship. You have some sense of connection to life, connection to nature, connection to existence and spirit, connection to your essence and your being. You have a relationship with all that is in some form of expression. Without that, again, it may take years, but you will slowly die without that connection. Which brings you back to the idea of sleep, because again, that's what the sleep is for, to make that connection. Now, as we have said, on our world, we no longer eat, we no longer sleep, because we are always connected, we are always sustained just by the energy of the universe. We have evolved to that point, and eventually you will too. But right now, again, as a generality, you will find that most of you need some form of relationship, some form of connection, some form of exchange with consciousness, some form of reflection that allows you to get in touch with the things you need to be more of who you are, the things you need to grow. This is a true need. The final need is what you might call creative expression. In other words, when you allow yourself to be who you are, it must be expressed. This is where acting on your passion falls in. This is where you express the aspect of creation that you are. You express the connections that you've made. You express the energy that has sustained you in life. So you need some form of personal, creative expression that is unique to you, that allows you to know, that allows you to shout that you are alive, that allows you to shine, that allows your spirit to be counted, to be seen, to be known, to be felt, to be understood. Those are the 7 neutral needs. And again, the idea of some of the later ones, like not expressing yourself creatively, not expressing, not stating who you are in some way, shape, or form by following your passion, can take years to kill you if you're not doing it. But you will slowly be dying. Now, again, there may be moments when you go through phases where you're not doing it. That's fine. because, again, those phases may be there to teach you something. As long as you understand that one of the tools in the kit of following your passion is the reflective mirror that reveals to you anything you might be holding on to in your unconscious mind that is out of alignment with your truth, that is out of alignment with what you need, and you allow yourself to address it, then that's the point. That's the purpose of having that moment of discovering something that is not your excitement in that moment, so that you can let it go and add its energy to your overall excitement and express yourself in grander ways. The idea, therefore, paradoxically, of the reflective mirror, while you're following your excitement, revealing something to you that is not part of your excitement, is part of your excitement. To find out what doesn't excite you is part of your excitement, because when something manifests in your life that might be representative of what you don't prefer, you can use that in a positive way by recognizing that it might be there as a clarifying point to show you what you don't prefer much more clearly, so that you can see what you do prefer by contrast much more clearly. That's how to use what you don't prefer in a way that you do prefer. So again, the expression of your truth, the expression of your being by following your passion to the best you're able, with no insistence on a particular outcome, because you really don't know what's supposed to happen. You may think you do, but that's where you go back to the negative ego. That's where you go back to the idea that the ego thinks it has to control everything. That's where you go by the idea of wanting. I want this to happen. This has to happen. It's really got to happen, or something is wrong. Something went wrong somewhere. I'm off my path. No. You cannot be off your path. You are your path. The only way you can experience as if you're off your path is by assuming that something that has happened in your life cannot possibly be there for a positive reason. Remember, remember, remember. This is what you need to remember. It doesn't matter what happens. It only matters what you do with what happens. That's the key. That's the secret. But when you find yourself in a puzzle, in a conundrum, when you feel like you have forgotten, just go back to the 7 neutral needs. Let's see. I'm still breathing. I'm doing pretty good. I've got number 1 on the checklist checked off. Got that down pat. I need some water. Oh, all right. I might be a little thirsty, might be a little dehydrated. All right, glug, glug, glug. Check that off your list. I need to get some sleep. I'm feeling really tired. Why am I tired? I'm exhausted because I've been trying to be someone I'm not, which is the most tiring thing you can do. So I am now excited about resting. Rest, regenerate, connect, re-energize your batteries. Now, perhaps, when you wake up, you are hungry. Get some food. Put it in your body. Whatever it may be that works for you. Listen to your body consciousness. Listen to your intuition. You don't have to force yourself to be more spiritual. Yes, it's important to lighten up, but when your energy is on a higher frequency, you will automatically lose the urge to eat certain things that might have a heavier energy. There is no reason to force yourself there, which is an oxymoron, and it doesn't work anyway. Listen to your body consciousness. It knows what you need, and it knows what you don't need. So, pay attention to that. Then, all right, got that all checked off, those first 4 biggies. And now, some shelter. The idea of, are you in the environment that excites you? Because remember, when we talk about doing what excites you the most and following your passion and acting on it, it has to be a complete thing, a holistic thing. Doing what excites you, in the way it excites you, how it excites you, where it excites you, with whom it excites you, will automatically allow your synchronicity to lead you to the place that is most representative, that will bring you the form of shelter or environment that you need to allow you to be who you really are and continue to grow. And also the idea of connection. It will again synchronistically bring into your life all those of whatever type of being that really is most representative of the connections you need to make in order to discover more relationship, more about yourself, more reflectivity, more information that you might need to add to your understanding of your being and your theme of exploration in this life, and help you grow and expand. And then finally, yes, the expression of who and what you are. Your purpose in life is to be you as best as you possibly can. That's your purpose. The expression of your purpose will be as different as there are as many people, because that's just an expression of your purpose. Your passion is the expression of your purpose. But the vibration, the frequency of your passion is who you actually are, is your frequency of existence, is your essential self. So expressing yourself, acting on your passion to the best you're able with no insistence, so you don't get caught up again in that idea of wanting, which isn't necessarily aligned with what you truly need. And if you can check all those off, you're doing pretty good. You're really doing all you need to do. You're really doing the best you can. And you can start relaxing into the idea that life works automatically. You can start allowing synchronicity to work for you in positive ways rather than negative ways. Because remember, synchronicity is always working. Always. It never stops. But there is negative synchronicity. And when you buy into negative beliefs, fear-based beliefs, then you are feeding the machine with negative energy, and it can only produce negative synchronicity and allow the things to happen or not happen that will continue to perpetuate the idea of the downward spiral of negative synchronicity. But when you feed it the positive energy and stay in the positive vibratory state, no matter what's going on, no matter how it looks, you are feeding the machine with the positive energy that will allow you to experience synchronicity in the positive way. This is just physics. What you put out is what you get back. Because physical reality isn't real. It's just a mirror. It's just a projection of your consciousness. So, allow yourselves to always go back to those neutral places. Allow yourself to recognize that you have what you need. And if you're going to find yourself wanting, then at least want what you need. And nothing else. Because what else do you need but what you truly need? You already come in with everything you need. It's not always manifest. You don't always see it right away because there is a timing to the unfolding and the appearance of these things. But all that timing is baked in. It's there, right here with you. You don't have to force it. It will happen in perfect timing. That's the way it's designed. That's the way it's structured. So remember, many people on your planet talk about the idea of, well, surrender to it. Surrender to the flow. And many people, because of the way you've been taught to believe things, think, oh, surrender. Well, that means I'm giving up control. No. Surrender is simply giving over to the control you already have built in. Surrender is giving up on thinking that the ego has to control everything. All the ego has to do is keep you focused in your physical experience and go along for the ride. That's all it's designed to do. That's all it needs to do. Don't burden the ego with more than it was designed to handle. Otherwise, it starts getting a little bit crotchety. And it turns into the negative ego. Oh, you want me to handle that? Oh, okay. Oh, wait, I have to have this too? Oh, all right, now I have to make that happen? Oh, I'm beginning not to like you very much. So I'm going to start playing some dirty tricks on you, and I'm going to make you think that you need to have this when it's just a want. See if you like it when I overburden you with the things you've overburdened me with. Yes, the ego knows how to play that game. So let the ego do its job of simply experiencing your life, allowing you to have the focus to experience a physical reality. Because remember, that focus is all it is. It's just an imposition on yourself of a particular point of view that allows you to experience something called physical reality as if it was real. It's not. Your natural state is non-physical, so to speak. Your natural state is spirit. You never leave spirit, ever. You're just dreaming that you have left spirit. You are having a dream in spirit that you're not in spirit. That's what physical reality is. It's just a focus. In the same way that when you go to sleep and you have a dream, and it seems very real, and then you wake up and you go, oh, well, no matter how real that felt, this is who I really am. Well, no, not really. This is actually the dream. You've just gone to sleep. And when you go to sleep at night and you dream, that's when you actually have woken up. Because you are more of yourself in that state, more connected, more aware to your spiritual essence. That's why time doesn't make sense in dreams, because in the spirit realm, time is that malleable, that flexible. It doesn't really exist in the same way, because it's just part of your dream that it exists. Time is just a side effect of your consciousness, experiencing things in a certain way so you can have the experience you call physical reality, which is just a dream within your consciousness. Is this making some sense? All right. Then, at this time, we will thank you for allowing us to share these ideas with you. And
It's so nice to be in your presence again, old friend.
it is a joy for us to be in yours.
Now, my question is, can you help me get a perspective on what's going on in our crazy political system?
Yes,
You know?
I can tell you that what's going on in your crazy political system is that you are all crazy.
We are.
Now, to go into deeper detail, as we said a little while back in your terms of time, everything would change in the fall of 2016. I
Yes.
guess you now believe us.
Yes, this is our gift.
It is a gift. Because here's the way we framed it. Before that particular threshold crossing, many of you were floating down a gentle stream. Now suddenly you're hitting the rapids. Something very unexpected has happened, upset the apple cart, as you say, went in a direction you least expected. You're riding the rapids. All right, but remember this. If you learn how to maintain your balance in the rapids, you get downstream that much faster, don't you?
Yes.
So it's actually an opportunity for acceleration in the direction you actually prefer by riding the wave of what you don't prefer in a positive way. Because if something so unexpected can actually happen, anything is possible.
Yeah, okay.
And if you
okay.
understand how to stay in that state, that frame of mind, that energy, and that attitude, then that wave, no matter how negative it might seem from one point of view, will push you along much faster as long as you maintain your bubble reality and contain within it the energy state that you prefer. Remember that what's happening now is literally, this is not a metaphor anymore, literally a splitting into different parallel realities.
Yes.
And so even though you might still be able to observe the other parallel realities and the people in them that might be representative of what you don't prefer, just because you can observe it doesn't mean it has any ability to affect you. It's like looking through a glass wall. You can still see it, but nothing can get through that wall to you unless you're the one that breaks the glass and says, come on in. Do you understand?
Yes.
So you're really beginning to truly see the splitting of the different parallel realities, and in the years to come, somewhere down the road, you will find less and less ability to find people in your reality that are not vibrationally compatible with your reality. But right now, it's still a mixed bag. Right now, you can still observe all the different realities that your world is splitting off into, because you still are making up your mind about what you really prefer. You're still examining all your belief systems, and you're still creating definitions and giving meaning to these things and practicing how to give the meaning that you prefer. So they're all going to still be around you, because as you expand your consciousness, remember, you're going to see more of creation, not less of it. And when you see more of creation, you have to see more positive and more negative, because then it all becomes an equally balanced choice. Just because you may choose what you prefer doesn't mean you invalidate what you don't prefer. It's an equal choice. It's an equal path. It's a valid way to go. But you can say, no thank you, without invalidating that energy, because invalidating what you don't prefer is what sticks you to it, because you're giving it more importance than it needs to have. But
Well-
when it's all neutral and you say, well, you are wonderful, negative side, because you are, by contrast, showing me more clearly the positive that I prefer. Remember, you have a saying on your planet, a candlelight shines more brightly when it's surrounded by darkness. Yes?
Yes, indeed.
So if you use it that way and just keep focused on the light and use the dark to help illuminate it, to show you where that light is, then you will remain in the state of being you prefer. You will experience the things in your life that you need to experience that are correct for you. And it doesn't really matter what anyone else decides to do because they're actually not really affecting your reality. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Does that
Very
help
much
you?
so. Yes, it does. It just gets so seductive sometimes
But
to
that's
react to it.
a belief. Yes?
Okay, yeah.
That's a
yeah.
belief system. If you're saying that the negative side, the dark side, is so seductive,
Well, my reacting to it. I'm
but
not
the
s-
mind only reacts because you believe what you believe.
Oh,
You're
okay.
giving the mind something to react to.
Okay.
Remember, there is no such thing as an emotion in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You cannot feel anything until you have a definition of it. So when you have a feeling, that's your first clue. You must be defining and labeling something in a certain way in order to have the reaction or response that you're having.
Okay.
You can always then backtrack from your behavior, your thoughts, your emotions, to the question, what must I believe is true about myself in this situation in order to feel, think, behave the way I am?
Got it.
That will reveal the definition, and once you reveal the definition and bring it to light, then you can say, well, this makes no sense. Why am I buying into this definition? It doesn't really serve me. And then it's gone, because as soon as a definition makes no sense, you don't hold on to it. If you still do the same things, all that means is you haven't found the fundamental definition. Keep looking.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Does this help you?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
Hello.
And a you good day.
Oh, this is really exciting.
Yes, it is.
I have so I'm really appreciative of the 7 neutral needs that you brought forward.
All right.
And my question pertains to the first neutral need, and that is air.
Yes.
And I'm curious about when air quality is compromised, or when food quality is compromised, or water for that matter.
Yes.
And what it is that we can do to support ourselves in receiving those needs when things might be compromised.
Well, first of all, depending upon your belief system, you can find that it might be wise for many of you in the consensus agreement upon your planet to simply take an opportunity now and then to detoxify your system.
Yes.
Because if your air is polluted and your water is polluted and your food is polluted, then those pollutants will lodge in the cellular structure of your body. And you will not be capable of absorbing the nutrients that your body needs to remain in a healthy state, because the absorption is being blocked by the toxins. So if you, as thoroughly as possible, detoxify your body, then you will find that you can absorb the nutrients of the food that you take in, which would be as natural and organic as possible and free from toxins as possible. And then your body will have the elements it needs to deal with just about anything. So doing that on a relatively regular basis, once every 3 months, 6 months, year at least, may allow you to maintain a balance. Now, of course, it also has to do with your belief system. But again, as we said before, it doesn't necessarily work to force yourself to say, well, I'm supposed to be more spiritual about this, and I should just be able to believe that stuff away. Yes, it's possible. But if you don't really believe you can believe it away, then it might actually be the path of least resistance to just do the detoxification. You have to be honest within yourself about what you actually believe is most likely to be done by you, what you're most probable, most capable of actually doing. And eventually, as you practice, yes, you can gain a handle, you can get more practice and more experience with just knowing how to shift your belief so that those things belong to another reality and they no longer affect you because you're in a different reality where they never did affect you. You understand?
Yes.
But if you are honest with yourself and don't believe you're actually at that point, then follow the path of least resistance that synchronicity brings to you, because that's still a product of your belief. It's just that you're using a permission slip that is a reflection of what you believe is possible for you, and that's the easiest way to circumvent the old belief system, by using a permission slip that gives you permission to do so, or that allows you to give yourself permission to do so more easily than sitting there straining to do it in a way you think is supposed to be more representative of being a spiritual, uplifted being. You follow me?
Yes. So I'm curious if you can offer any, encourage any particular ways to detox?
I just gave you an idea, but there are companies that do exist on your planet that already have various formulations. If you do your own research, you will see that there are certain substances on your planet that are very good for causing detoxification effects in the body.
Yes.
But since we have been asked this question over and over and over and over and over and over again,
and again,
we have directed many to the company that does exist on your planet in the channel's general location that has created an extremely effective detoxification program, and that organization is referred to as American Botanical Pharmacy in your Los Angeles area.
Great.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay. So so I live in Denver, and we were really affected by a lot of the smoke coming south from a lot of the fires in Montana and in Oregon, and so it was advised to stay in your homes and have these really high quality air filters and whatnot. And so that just felt very confining to me, and it felt like, wow, I'm in a reality that I don't like right now, and I would like to switch it. And so that's kind of where that
All right, but
came
again,
from.
remember, what happens for a reason, and it's something that gives you a chance to practice remaining in a positive state rather than assuming that it has to change. Because remember, if you are, shall we say, of a state where you are allowing what's happening outside to determine your state, then you are not in a self-empowered state. It's about choosing the state you prefer regardless of what's happening outside, because that's the true measure of change. The true measure of change is not whether the outside world changes. It's whether you choose the state you prefer, even if the outside world stays the same. Because then you're proving you've changed, and you're not making the change conditional on what's going on around you. You are using what's going on around you in a way that is reflective of the reality you prefer as a state of being. Does that make sense?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then it will probably change. But you can't, quote unquote, want it to change, because then you're saying that you can't be in the state you prefer to be in unless it changes.
Absolutely.
You follow?
Absolutely.
So stay in the state, use it that way to remind you of the state you prefer, take action on the things that are commensurate with the state in a way that you prefer to, and then it may change, but you can't need it to change.
Thank you.
That's not one of the needs.
Right.
Needing something to change.
To change.
Change is a constant. It's one of the laws. Things will change. But you can't need it to change, because you don't need it to change. You can use it the way it comes to you to change yourself. Yes?
Absolutely.
Does
Thank
that help?
you. Totally.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So I live in Denver, and we were really affected by a lot of the smoke coming south from a lot of the fires in Montana and in Oregon, and so it was advised to stay in your homes and have these really high quality air filters and whatnot. And so that just felt very confining to me, and it felt like, wow, I'm in a reality that I don't like right now, and I would like to switch it. And so that's kind of where that
All right, but
came
again,
from.
remember, what happens for a reason, and it's something that gives you a chance to practice remaining in a positive state rather than assuming that it has to change. Because remember, if you are, shall we say, of a state where you are allowing what's happening outside to determine your state, then you are not in a self-empowered state. It's about choosing the state you prefer regardless of what's happening outside, because that's the true measure of change. The true measure of change is not whether the outside world changes. It's whether you choose the state you prefer, even if the outside world stays the same. Because then you're proving you've changed, and you're not making the change conditional on what's going on around you. You are using what's going on around you in a way that is reflective of the reality you prefer as a state of being. Does that make sense?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then it will probably change. But you can't, quote unquote, want it to change, because then you're saying that you can't be in the state you prefer to be in unless it changes.
Absolutely.
You follow?
Absolutely.
So stay in the state, use it that way to remind you of the state you prefer, take action on the things that are commensurate with the state in a way that you prefer to, and then it may change, but you can't need it to change.
Thank you.
That's not one of the needs.
Right.
Needing something to change.
To change.
Change is a constant. It's one of the laws. Things will change. But you can't need it to change, because you don't need it to change. You can use it the way it comes to you to change yourself. Yes?
Absolutely.
Does
Thank
that help?
you. Totally.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The question that came from one of our Ustream listeners was, how can terrible things happen if everything is made of love? How can a being of love commit terrible deeds and still feel okay with it?
Understand that what you're calling love is simply the vibration of existence itself. And remember that it's not love, it's unconditional love. Therefore, because everything is positive, negative, and neutral, unconditional love does not judge the negative. It loves it equally with the positive and the neutral. Because unconditional love knows that the negative can serve many purposes. So the idea is to recognize what you prefer and be in the state that you prefer that is representative of the balancing of those three energies, so that you can then act on the energy you prefer. But the idea is that existence isn't committing anything. It's not, in a sense, actually acting. It is everything. It doesn't really need to act. It doesn't really need to have an intention to do anything. It is everything. But it can experience itself as pieces of itself, as reflections of itself, which is what all of you and all of us are. And those reflections, from their point of view, can decide, this is what I prefer, this is what I do not prefer, but still acknowledge the unconditionality of existence in that there are these choices, positive, negative, and neutral. That's just the way it's structured. And all we're talking about is a mechanical energy, in a sense. Positive energy is simply that which is collective, connective, expansive. Negative energy is simply that which is disconnective, contractive. And in that sense, therefore, you're only talking about something that is a type of energy, an expression and an experience of energy. There's no value judgment on it. Therefore, it's about what tools you need to use. In tomorrow's transmission, we're going to cover this a little bit more, because when we talk about the idea of limitations unlimited, we're going to explore these concepts of positive and negative a little bit more thoroughly, and perhaps that will also give you a deeper understanding of what we're talking about in a way that might answer that question more fully. All right?
Okay.
All right. Now is it time for your nutrition break?
But I did have a follow-up question.
A follow-up. Oh, all right.
So it's sort of like along the idea of when what appear to be bad things happen to good people.
Yes.
And I guess the whole idea that being on Earth means dealing with negative and dealing
Yes.
with neutral.
But I'm
And-
going to stop you right there.
Yeah,
You know why?
because you're going to talk about it tomorrow.
No. Because the phrase itself, bad things happening to good people, is a very arrogant phrase. You have no idea why that's happening to someone. You don't know what they're going to get out of it. You don't know why that's there. It's not your life. It's an observation from outside. And even if the person themselves says that, why do bad things always happen to me? I'm a good person. That's a value judgment, and it doesn't necessarily take into effect exactly the reason why that was created. Yes, it's possible that some things are manifest from negative and fear-based places, of course. But you can always benefit from what's going on. It doesn't necessarily always look like what you think. It doesn't always mean what you think it looks like. You don't know why that's happening for that person. Something that may to you seem to be the worst possible thing that could happen to that person may be the best possible thing that ever happened to them in their lives, because it might change them in ways that they don't believe they could have changed in any other way. You don't know. You have to take it on a person-by-person, case-by-case basis to know what's really going on mechanically with the positive or negative energy that might be being experienced in those scenarios. You cannot necessarily just give it a blanket idea that, oh, that's a very bad thing happening to that very good person. That shouldn't be happening. You have no idea why that's going on until you really investigate it. So the blanket statement itself is a fallacy and misleading. Make sense?
Yes, and it makes sense that whenever you're challenged really intensely
Yes.
by things like that, that it all comes down to whether or not you can find the state of being that will allow it to transform.
Exactly. And it's not even about finding it, but I know what you mean. It's really just about making a decision that that's the only choice you have, to be in the state of being you prefer, and that there simply isn't any other choice that makes sense to you at that moment. Period.
It's nice that creation handed you a key.
Exactly. And now you can enjoy the fact that creation will hand you some food. Take your nutrition break. We will resume this transmission after your break. Thank you.
One is how to be present, and another challenge is how to love myself.
How to love yourself?
Yes.
How to be present?
Yeah.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is there any time when you actually aren't present? When you are past or future? Are you here now?
Physically, yes, but I have sort of anxiety, and then my mind is racing all the times.
Racing, racing, racing.
Racing thoughts.
Well, what are your fears? What are you afraid will happen to you?
That's what I'm asking.
Say again.
That's what I'm asking. I don't know what I'm afraid of or what my fear is.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I'll ask it this way. Starting with this line of questioning. Are you living your highest excitement? Yes or no?
Yes.
Then how can you be afraid if you're living your highest excitement?
I don't know.
So the clue is, in that answer, if you are experiencing fear, you are not living your highest excitement. Because if you're actually in a state of excitement, there is no definition of fear within it. When you experience fear, you have left the state of excitement. Do you understand?
Yes.
So, I'll ask the question again this way. What are you afraid will happen if you continue to act on your highest excitement?
I've never thought about it.
Think of it now. What are you afraid will happen if you continue to act on your highest excitement all the time? What are you afraid might happen?
I will be somebody else.
What's wrong with being somebody else? Because the only somebody else you could possibly be is more of yourself if you're acting on your highest excitement. When you give over to fear and choose fear, that's when you're not being you. That's when you're being somebody else. So since you're already being somebody else, and you're used to doing that by giving into your fear, why not stop being somebody else and be yourself by acting on your excitement?
Probably because I know what or who or what kind of person I don't want to be, but still I'm not quite clear about what kind of person that I want to be.
But if you start at least knowing what kind of person you do not prefer to be,
I'm crystal clear.
then what's left? If you are doing everything you can to not be the person you don't prefer to be, would that not mean automatically that what's left is being the person that you do prefer to be? What else is there?
Well, I don't know.
Exactly. Nothing.
Probably that's what I'm afraid of, that there's somebody that I don't know.
But there are many things you don't know. You will never know everything. Do you think you have to know certain things before you can simply act on your excitement?
I have OCD. I really want to know everything.
You can't know everything. It's not possible for you to know everything, and in fact, knowing everything is getting in your way. Do you understand? Yeah. You're not allowing room to flow. You're not allowing room for spontaneity. You're not allowing room for synchronicity. Insisting on knowing everything before you're willing to take a step is the surest way to stop yourself from taking any step, because you will never know everything you need to know. You can't. Your physical mind isn't capable of knowing everything it needs to know to move through life. May I ask you another question?
Yes.
Have you ever been given a present?
Pardon?
Have you ever been given a present, like on your birthday? A gift. Have you ever been given a gift?
No.
Never? No one's ever given you any gifts? Ever in your life, on your birthday or anything?
Well, I can count it with my fingers, one hand.
Why have you never received gifts from anyone?
Probably that I'm hungry of love because I never get loved.
Well, you have to start with loving yourself.
Yes,
Why should anyone else love you if you don't love yourself?
That's my challenge, as I said.
So, what's stopping you from loving yourself?
I don't like myself.
Sure you do.
I don't like myself.
But that must only mean that you don't think you're worthy of it. Why don't you think you're worthy of it? Why don't you think you deserve love?
Oh, probably because of my childhood trauma. I was constantly denied by my mom and humiliated by her.
All right. But now you are not a child anymore, are you?
No, but that trauma is still there. The pain is still there.
Who says the trauma is still here? Okay. You do. You're making the connection. You're creating a past connection that no longer exists. You're assuming the trauma is still with you. You're creating a continuity that doesn't have to be there.
But I got confused. One night, I sort of remembered those sad memories and let it go.
But you are creating those memories now. You see, you think remembering is of the past. It's not. You're creating memories every moment.
So those memories are still serving me, sort of?
They don't exist for you if you understand that they don't exist for you now, because every moment you are a new person, literally.
Yes.
In order to experience what you're calling a memory of the past as if it's real, you have to actually recreate that over and over and over and over again. You have to say, this is part of who I am right now. This is part of who I am right now. This is part of who I am right now. And you're doing this billions of times per second because you have created an assumption that you have to do that. You don't. You can break the continuity. Whatever happened didn't happen to you, it happened to someone else because you are no longer that person. Literally, no longer and never have been that child. You can actually re-identify, redefine yourself right now as a completely different person who never had that past, who never had that history, if you understand how reality works. You are zero every moment, square one every moment, back to scratch every moment, and the only way that it seems as if that's your past is because you are continuing to believe and insist that it is when it's not. That's another person. She has nothing to do with you. You have nothing to do with her, except for the pieces that you want to remain connected to, that you believe serve you at this point. But if there are pieces you believe no longer serve you, then they're not real for you because they never happened to you, the person you are now.
Okay.
This is literal. It's not a metaphor. The way you experience physical reality, the way you experience time, it's a side effect. Time is a side effect of your consciousness shifting through billions of versions, parallel versions of yourself every second. It's like frames on a film strip, where the projector light has to go through each frame in order to create the illusion of movement and time and change. But this frame over here really has absolutely nothing to do with this frame back here. They're two completely different frames. And when you decide to project your consciousness light through a different frame, you will see that this frame has nothing to do with the other frames if you don't prefer that it does. This is actually physically how reality is constructed, a frame at a time, billions of times per second. So every moment you get to decide what frame you are, how you define that moment, who you are in that moment, and it has to have nothing, doesn't have to have anything to do with who you have ever been, because that wasn't you. Is this sinking in a little bit?
Yes.
Let this idea percolate within you. Start exploring, really start understanding and wrapping your mind around the fact that you truly, literally are a different person every moment. I know that when you look in the mirror and you say, well, that still looks like my face, it's not the face that was there a split second ago. It's another one that you've created to create the illusion of continuity, the illusion that you're the same person. Person and personality are artificial constructs. How you define them is how you experience them. So all you're actually saying is, at some point in what you call the past, someone convinced you to buy into a belief system that you are the same person every single moment, and that what happens to one version of you must continue to happen to all the other versions of you. That's one way to experience reality, but it's not the only way, and it is absolutely false in a general sense. It's only true if you have bought into it as a truth. But if it no longer serves you to think of yourself that way, as having been that child, because it simply doesn't resonate with you anymore, and the things that were done simply don't serve you anymore to hold on to, you have every right and every power to let that go, because it actually doesn't exist for the new person you are every moment until you say it does. You are in complete control of feeling out of control. You can never be out of control. To be able to have an experience of being out of control, you have to be in control to create the out of control experience. That's what you're doing because you have been convinced that that's what you must do. But there is absolutely no rule within creation that says you have to do that. You can decide every moment who you are, and you can decide that what was has nothing to do with what is. It's up to you. I understand it may take you a little practice to wrap your mind around this concept of how reality is structured, and that's all right. But we would recommend and suggest that you do practice that and wrap your mind around this understanding of the nature and structure of reality, because it will set you free when your mind finally grasps it. You will be free to be who you prefer to be. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.